This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast, Season 17, Episode 24, live from Sydney. Not live, because obviously this episode won't go out live, because that's not how podcasts work. However, you and I are in Sydney together, which wasn't expected. I didn't anticipate coming back to Australia so soon after the Border Gavaskar Trophy, but tonight is our night of nights, Jeff. It is the, as we described it last week, it is the Australian Cricket, what's called again? The Australian Sports Commission Awards. Our Brownlow.
Our Brownlow.
Our Brownlow medal night, which means you're wearing a fucking T-shirt.
I have a shirt in my bag. It'll be fine.
There's no tuxedo from Jeff. I don't have one on either.
I do not own a suit, and I do not intend to start owning a suit now.
Of course I do, and I've got my Lord's Taverner's tie on very proudly, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, that's I should say, by the way, that our episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. More about them later, but they are Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm. But yes, I'm in Australia, I think, in total for like 51 hours or something like that. So I got here yesterday, I was in Melbourne, did a full day of work and whole day of meetings in Melbourne, went out with some mates last night, which was a wonderful thing. Got on a plane this morning, or this afternoon rather, flew to Sydney, joined you here at the SCG almost immediately. Tomorrow morning I'll wake up, I'll see one of our dear Final Word friends, John O'Halen. I'll go to the airport with him, even I'm staying at the airport, but we're catching up. Then go to the airport, and then I'll be back to London in time for a full day of school holiday activity, half-term activity with Winnie on Friday morning. I land at 6 a.m. at Heathrow.
Well, Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte famously only needed 48 hours. It was 24 hours. It was 48, I think, in order to, expand their horizons, grow as people, develop a relationship. So 51, frankly, is luxurious. That movie, a lot more racist than I remembered that movie when I watched it back a while ago. I was like, Jesus Christ, there is a lot going on here. But yeah, it was a more unvarnished look at the 70s police force than I assumed. I just thought it would be more wacky, and I was like, this is pretty full on.
What's that? There's an English show that goes back and depicts the I think what it's called now. That deals with the English police force in the 70s, and it's similarly robust. I should note a few things as to tonight. I think there was a bit of interest when I announced it when I talked about it on the podcast last night. So we're up for the best sports podcast. This is the one.
It would be weird if it was something else, honestly.
Yeah, it's true, it would be. But last year we were runner-up to Howie. He's in the final again, so he's fairly formidable with the Howie games.
I'm going to slide tackle him. The idea is we get him early. When he'll be shaking hands, he'll be having a canapé, and we just Danny Tiato him from behind, in straight into the knees, both knees.
I love that it still works, Danny Tiato, like nearly 30 years later from when he was doing his thing with Melbourne Croatia and the Melbourne Knights and all the rest of it.
Kevin Muscat was usually my go-to for dirty hackdowns behind play. That was sort of the guy, he was always the get in there, go boys.
So ABC Daily are the other podcasts in the final, one that you've contributed to occasionally when on the road with ABC. Libby and Georgie Trickett's podcast. Libby Trickett, of course, who was a gold medalist in 2004, maybe 2008.
Well, if it's a swim-off, if they go it's a tie and there's a swim-off, I don't fancy our chances.
No, I don't. And the Female Athlete Project, which was a pod recorded by Chloe Dalton as one of the Rising Star nominees. So that's a nice thing that we get to do that, and just a bit lovey-dovey here. But I sort of feel like we are here, on behalf of our loyal listeners who've been with us for, a decade, right? 10 years of the podcast this year, and 834 of you have now joined on Patreon. That's what we're up to after meeting Maruli a couple of weeks ago in Gaul. So, even though we've been making this show for a long time and had many opportunities to celebrate the success we've enjoyed in different ways, this is kind of a full circle moment 10 years on. If we're successful, we'll be very happy. If we're not, it's fine as well.
Celebrate the success we've enjoyed is a very sportsman's, Stumps interview sort of line to use. We've celebrated a lot of success together.
We trusted the process.
We've enjoyed a lot of success together. The way that all of that goes together, and I think it's also easy to forget the people who signed up to support the show on Patreon. There are lots of people who were there for a time and they did their time, they served their time, and they have gone on to other things, and good luck to them, which means that over the journey we must have had well over 1,000 people who have signed up. We'd love to have 1,000 at the same time, but we have had those people, we have had that support. So it's a lot of lives that have been touched. If you can sort of go Jack Black and School of Rock, I have been touched by your listeners, and I'm pretty sure that they touched me.
So yeah, well, and to back over that, the 1,000 number or the 1,009. So I just briefly caught up with Maxi's manager. Actually, I probably should have told him what I've been saying on the podcast about the getting Glenn to put in a phone call to whoever at random,
or
from
just
someone between
just
800.
trick him. You could just call Glenn,
And have
and
the phone
then
with me.
by the way, you'd be like, "Oh, can you chat to a friend of mine?"
Yeah, we'll do it as a Zoom call so you can see Glenn go through his paces, whatever that means on a Zoom call. But yes, that will be something that we continue to talk about. So patreon.com/thefinalword, and hopefully tonight is one of those that we look back on very fondly. Jeff, let's get into our conversation today, which I'm hoping will run for about 60 minutes because we have the aforementioned canapé party to attend before the awards. We've got the Sheffield Shield playing out in front of us at the moment, a really, really high quality game between Victoria and New South Wales. I watched about 20 minutes of it, and it is fair dinkum out there at the moment. Will Sutherland bumping the hell out of Ryan Philippe, who is on 19. Not that it'll mean anything by the time we do our Sheffield Shield segment in about 40 minutes from now. What will Ryan Philippe be on, Jeff?
What will he be on by the time we finish?
No, because Sheffield Shield segment's in that we're going to do today is in segment 2, right?
Oh,
so in 40 minutes from now, when we're actually talking about the Shield, what will he be on?
He'll be out for 28.
He'll be out for 28. Cruel Intentions. I was at the Exford last night with the jukebox, and I did put on Placebo, Every You and Every Me. And I did see Ryan Philippe on screen, and I did think about Josh Ryan Philippe as well.
And all through the watching the Sri Lanka series on Seven, many reminders that they're streaming Buffy the Vampire Slayer in full on one of their many other channels. So if you've never watched it, do yourself a favour. If you're a fan of ankle-length leather trench coats and being able to do cartwheel kicks while wearing the aforementioned trench coat, Sarah Michelle Gellar, thank you for your service to the 90s and the early 2000s. Cruel Intentions included.
What a movie. Okay, the first actual topic we've got to get into here is one that was incredibly poorly timed for us last week. The media statement went out like 5 minutes after we finished recording. Well, not media statement, it was a story broken by the Hornbag, Ben Horn, that Matt Kuhnemann has been referred for testing for his bowling action. Yes, he's off to the University of WA, University of Western Australia, I should say. They don't like using the term University of WA. But
it means the same thing, guys.
Yeah, not literally, because they don't do the testing there anymore. They're doing
they
it at the National Centre of Excellence in Brisbane, or whatever they call that, National Cricket Centre. But in our hearts, he's going to the University of WA.
Yep.
And yeah,
spiritually.
And I think we need to get into this a little bit, Jeff, because chucking or illegal bowling actions are, I think, something that requires a book or a PhD thesis written on it as it relates to Australian fans.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to Ian Metcalfe. I think the dramatic nature of the Metcalfe removal from the attack, never to bowl in professional cricket ever again, and the way in which that affected him throughout his life, and the fact that it's still the first thing that people refer to when linking Australians and actions that have been seen as suspect, that psychodrama, I think still lives large, because the moment this story came out, people were absolutely furious, and I just wanted to say that before we get into the the nuts and bolts of what's actually happened here.
Well, and they were furious in a couple of different ways. Some were furious at the bowler, going, aha, look, he's a cheat, he's a chucker. And some were furious at the fact he got reporters saying, well, he's been bowling for ages without having any aspersions cast. And, well, I won't say that. I will say that, say, in our listener channel where people chat about the game going on through the test matches before the reports came, there was a fair bit of interesting, people just going, have a look at the arm there. What do we think of the arm? So a couple of things. Before you get into the details, the biomechanics and all the rest of it, I think the chucking thing sits in a group of cricket-related things that people get very morally excited about. One of them, so no surprises, is ball tampering. I wrote a whole in-depth chapter in the Steve Smith book in 2018 about the psychology of ball tampering and why people got as angry as they did at that, despite the fact that all professional cricketers know that everybody's ball tampering in some way pretty much all the time. Like, they're all giving it a go one way or another. There's ball tampering, there's chucking, there's claiming low catches when you think that it might have bounced, and there's running out of the non-striker's end. They're, for me, the four where people get most emotionally exercised, as though there's this huge moral component. Whereas I think you can kind of relax about this stuff. If you're not sure if you've taken a catch cleanly and you can leave it up to the third umpire, do it. Like, what's wrong with that? If you're wandering out of your ground and you get run out, okay, what's wrong with that? And if the arm's a bit bendy, I mean, you've got to go back to why was chucking outlawed in the first place. It was outlawed as a safety thing because it meant that you could throw the ball a lot faster than you could bowl the ball, in theory, although like the fastest major league pitchers are still only about as fast as the fastest bowlers. So in fact, about 100 miles an hour is where both disciplines top out. It's more readily attainable in baseball than it is in cricket. But getting into the weeds there, just to finish that thought by saying it was about no helmets, uncovered wickets, no adequate safety equipment, so throwing the ball was a genuine risk to life and limb. It's not anymore. And so I don't understand why that sort of moral hangover, that idea that somebody's doing something truly dastardly and nefarious if they flex the arm a little bit, is actually that much of a problem.
Yeah, it's taboo, right? And when you call someone a chucker, I've always thought there's an effeminate piece to it as well.
Right.
Like the keep your arm straight when you bowl thing. It's like having the sort of the idea of the kinky action is like it's a little bit like.
But also in misogynistic terms, girls can't throw. So which is it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I mean, look, I'm not going to say that that bowlers should be able to go to more than 15 degrees. That was a very lengthy process that was entered into in the early 2000s, and that was where they realised. And if you want to learn more about this, I strongly recommend reading Vibhushan Hunteraj's piece. Vish wrote a splendid piece about this in 15, 16 for the Cricket Monthly, which went into the Murali stuff in a lot of depth, and in turn went into the process they entered into then to work out why it was 15 degrees. Spoiler, it wasn't actually Murali. That's not the reason they chose 15 degrees. It's a couple of seamers, unnamed seamers, who took a lot of test wickets, hundreds and hundreds of test wickets, who were the bowlers that were agreed upon as where they were going to draw the line. Right, that's the first thing to say. But yeah, this story has. So I guess what I'm saying is that let's not debate that point. 15 degrees is what it is at the moment. It probably will remain that way. That was done not by chance. That was done by choice in a deliberative way. Moving on from that, the story has developed quite a bit. Now, the match officials are empowered to report. This is probably, again, coming back to the fandom. And look, I'm not saying that every fan should know all of this. But there was a lot of like, Sri Lanka, they harboured Murali. How dare they try and get rid of our spinner? That's clearly not what happened here. The match officials...
Don't say it was Joel Wilson, though.
Well, there were a number of match officials, right? There was Gaffney, there was Wilson, there was Holdstock as the three umpires across the series, and there was Jeff Crow. And he has to go and enter into this process now. The sooner the better for him, because if he does get chalked off, he needs a period of time before he can get another test, which is what Shakib Al Hassan is in that purgatory period at the moment, where he has to play as a specialist batter. So he hasn't played the Shield round this week, not because of it, it's because of his thumb, but the thumb doesn't get him out of the testing, because the thumb's on the other hand to the one that
he bowled in the test series with the thumb. So.
Yes, he was. Yeah, but his thumb's injured after Sri Lanka, so they're managing his thumb at the moment. That's why he didn't play for Tassie.
His other thumb.
Yeah, the problematic thumb that he hurt, which was on his right hand. And his bowling's under left hand.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. If he bowled with the thumb injury in the test series, he can bowl in the nets.
That's right. Yeah. That's it. So anyway, I'm just going through the process there. Now, they do check that they bowl at the same speed and the same revs on the ball. So there's none. Again, this goes back to the University of WA days. People said, well, Murali just went in and bowled straight breaks. Well, no, he didn't, because then he would have been seen to have completed the test adequately. Kuhnemann will need to bowl the same way that he bowled in the test matches in Sri Lanka. Now, Bharat wrote a really important piece on CricBuzz, I think, just to understand the nitty-gritty. It was an exclusive, did a great bit of journalism here. The Sri Lankans didn't like it after the first test, and their analyst internally was consulted, and they thought that this was fine, that the bowling action didn't constitute a breach of the rules, and thus it wasn't elevated with the match officials until after the second test match. So I get that it's a bit weird that he played the first one and it just didn't happen after the first one, but that's a bit of a behind-the-scenes process here. So the Sri Lankans who said that they thought Kuhnemann's action was suspect didn't really get a hearing internally, and this played out after the second test match. So, they might feel aggrieved now that he did, because he bowled very nicely in that second test, Jeff, at Gaul. Like, he took 4 I think, in the first innings and maybe 2 or 3 in the second, important wicket. So I get why Sri Lanka might be like, well, hang on a minute, this could have easily happened after the first test match. I understand that point that Steve Smith made and respect it. How can he play more than 100 professional games, and only now is he being called up for this?
You get more scrutiny when you play international cricket.
And I just think that this is purely, my eyes telling me this. I'm not basing this on anything anything's told me or anything. I think he has increased the amount of flexion that he has in his arm since 2023 in India. I just feel like he looks... this wasn't something that I noticed in India, and it is something that I noticed in Sri Lanka. And I think the most important point I want to make, the most clear point I want to make, is that when we did that interview in Perth in November, the work that's been done in this, the PhD study that's into this, correlation or causation, you can make your own mind up, but the further up the pyramid you are, the more likely, this was the conclusion of the academic work, the more likely you are to push the 15 degrees, right? So in some respects, this is an evolutionary thing. Kuhnemann has played Test cricket, he's gone back to Shield cricket, he's returned to Test level, and he probably is closer to 15 than he was the first time around. But I see that as wouldn't it be ideal if his bowling action was at 14 degrees? Like, think about this, zoom out a little bit. Isn't it perfect if you can get it just under the 15 degree thing? I mean, if that's the marginal gain that you are trying to achieve, or that your action is trying to achieve to get the most amount of spin, then it's there for a reason, right? Like he's permitted to have a 15 degree flexion in his arm. Why bend in his arm? Sorry, but why wouldn't you do that? I don't see this as like a negative thing. I see this as provided he gets seen as under 15 degrees. Maybe a sign of him developing very nicely, and why he had so much success is a part of that professional development or something like that.
I suppose it's a little like your fast bowler with the front foot on the front line.
Yes.
You want to use as much of it as possible so that your release point is as close to the bat as possible, because if you release it from a foot further back, then that's maybe a 100th of a second more that they have.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's analogous to that. You're trying to get every last bit that's within the rules. But
you also don't want to get too close to it, because if you're too close, if you're flirting with the very, very front of the line, then you will start to get chalked off, as you say. And the consequences for that with bending your arm too much are much longer lasting than getting pinged for a no ball and losing a wicket to an overstep. So it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous to want to be bowling at 14 and a half. You probably want to be bowling at 12.
Yeah. If you can manage it in a way that your action is within the guidelines through the testing, then that's a good thing. So it's been kind of
advantageous.
It's been sort of reported and opined as like this is some huge problem. I see it slightly differently. Gosh,
wicket's fallen.
This Victorian attack is so good. Oh, it was given out then. Did they think the finger went up and then... No, they changed the decision.
Called dead ball.
Change of decision.
The umpire did put the finger up first. And
I think he's made his mind up that he's hit it, that he smashed it. Don't see that very often, an umpire changing his decision. I think that's what's happened. Anyway.
Was that Ryan Phillippe?
I don't know. I didn't
Who's on strike? Because if so, he would have been gone for 25. It would have been pretty close.
I think it is, I can't tell.
Robbed. Well, he can get 3 more runs.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that point I wanted to make, that I don't think it's inherently a bad thing that Kuhnemann is bowling, and it's a little bit of an optical illusion with the cocking. Like he cocks it big time, right? And that not every spinner does that. A lot of spinners present the ball with the wrist the other way on the way up.
But in the way really that like Ashwin leads with the elbow when he comes into bowl.
And Ashwin's spoken at great length in the past about how important the cocking of his arm was to the way that he released the ball and getting the most amount of spin. And Ashwin has been talking about this as well. He thinks that this is similar to the illusion that you see with other bowlers. And that's an important point here that, I don't want to get into Murali stuff. We've done it before, but there's a reason why Murali, went through that testing at Lords with Mark Nicholas, where they put the steel,
plaster cast
around his arm, and he was still standing it just as much as he did when he did his testing back in the day, because there was an illusion there, and it's to do with the ability for him to have that flexibility in his wrist, which was unbelievable, right?
And the shoulder, he basically had a double jointed shoulder that would pop around to the front, so if you're watching from behind on a camera, it looked like the arm straightened. And
same with Bumrah. More recently, with the extraordinary arc that Bumrah has when he releases the ball.
But Bumrah's a Brett Lee style one. He's a hyper extender. The elbow bends backwards, so the arm does move, but it doesn't straighten in terms of what constitutes a throw.
That's right. Yeah, and just to back over that for a moment here, people got very cross and talking about those other two bowlers. Does anyone want to take away Michael Phelps's gold medals because his lung capacity was higher? Is anyone, do we talk about, if you have got natural gifts that mean that your body is able to contort in a way that is advantageous to your craft, and it just happens to be that you can bowl, and if that proves to be the case with Kuhnemann, that it is that he's got extra flexion compared to the average bear, like that's a great thing for him, but it doesn't make him, it doesn't make any of them who have that a cheat, for want of a better descriptor.
Yeah, if you ride for Team Sky and you just naturally have a good network of doctors who can ship you a bunch of drugs in France, and that's just a natural advantage that you have. No, I mean, chucking, it is one of those moral panics that doesn't really deserve as much hype as it gets. But we've spent half the show on it, so we should do the next bit.
And it's happening, yeah, this testing is happening, so it's a watch this space, but I thought it deserved a more lengthy conversation to get us going. The Australian men's team got pumped in Sri Lanka after
the classic 2 ODI series.
Yeah, we always talk about those, those time-honoured two match series, but they lost by 49 runs and a record-breaking 174 runs. They got rolled for 165 and 107 respectively. These were treated as warm-up games for the Champions Trophy. They had two different teams they were fielding, so there'll be some frustration there that they're not coming into the tournament in red-hot form. But I don't know, does anyone remember the warm-up games from the 2022 T20 World Cup where Australia got mauled in both of them? And then, no one remembers, nor do they care. Huge.
Someone just hit a 6.
Oh, onto the roof of the pavilion. Onto the members' roof. That is massive.
Jilks.
No, it's
that's
right.
Ryan. Oh, well, he's ruined my 28 now.
31
Umpire's dudded me.
That is, I don't think I've seen that before. I'm sure they're playing on a pitch that's nearer to the members' side, but still, pinging it onto the roof. It's like he's in North Sydney.
So, one-day stuff. Mitchell Starc will miss the Champions Trophy, which is big. The last remaining member of the big three. Cummins wasn't going. Hazelwood wasn't going. Now Starc's pulled out, personal reasons. So it's going to be a pretty raw. It is the generation next bowling attack already for Australia.
Yeah, and look, Starc citing personal reasons in the media release last week. I did a show called the Cricket Reborn podcast the other day, Jeff. A young lad called Ajit got in touch and wanted me to come on, and I was happy to do it. And he put to me in a roundabout kind of way, is Starc Australia's best white ball bowler ever? I'm like, well, maybe he is. I haven't thought about it too much. The numbers might not bear this out, but if McGrath, of course,
he's played a lot
World
less
Cups in a row
than some of the other players. So you've got your three bowlers with more wickets being McGrath, Warne, and Lee, but they all played, 200 plus. He's played 120 games, something like that. Starc, 100 and. I don't have it in front of me, but not a lot. Yeah,
I'll bring it up because, obviously he's won 2 50-over World Cups, 96 games for 382 wickets. That's his Test career. We better read the right category here, Jeff. 127 games for 244 wickets. That's better. Average of 23, strike rate of 26.6. So they're a lovely set of numbers. And I only say that because when we talk about the big three not playing in the Champions Trophy, if you want to be more direct about it, they've lost their attack leader over the last decade. Yeah, he's 35, but that might be the biggest of all the omissions, considering there are a shitload of them, including Mitchell Marsh, who's been the captain of that side quite a bit recently, and Cummins, who has done great things in practically every ICC tournament he's played in.
And considering it's a much more sort of Sheffield Shield-looking bowling attack at the moment, where you've got Spencer Johnson, you've got Nathan Ellis, Aaron Hardy, Ben Dwarshuis and Sean Abbott.
Yeah.
And, we only saw a glimpse of Dwarshuis in England in September. I'm not necessarily looking at him thinking, long international career coming up here. Sean Abbott has sort of chipped in around the edges for about 10 years here and there, but has never been seen as having enough skills to push past the main three bowlers. He got one game in the last 50-over World Cup they played. So it's not a credentialed bowling attack, and it's one that aggressive opponents would fancy taking down. Huge
opportunity for Spencer Johnson to lead the attack. And Dwarshuis, I think he is the one player who, because he had a relatively nice bowling analysis in the second one, Darry got an early wicket, took the new ball. But especially Johnson, right? Because you're right, Abbott is, I wouldn't say by definition, he's closer to the end of his career than the start. But, Abbott's not who they're building the attack around in Generation Next, nor are they with Dorcius. So, yeah, it is. Aaron Hardy has taken the new ball recently as well, although, of course, he performs an all-round role. But, yeah, I think about this series and Adam Zampa being by an absolute mile the most experienced bowler in the group. He'll have a lot of heavy lifting to do on flat tracks in Pakistan, which will be shirt fronts. And whether Spencer Johnson can be a real lethal match winner for Australia, and if he can, that's what Starc's been looking for. He said it on the record, right, that he wants to see the next group of left-handers coming through, left-armers coming through. So that'll be the one to watch there. And Australia play their first game of the tournament on Saturday at Lahore against England.
Crazy again that Australia and England got drawn in a group in a ICC trophy, just like India and Pakistan did in the other group. It's just weird. It keeps happening.
And the other teams in Group A, I think it's Group A, are South Africa and Afghanistan. Everyone's playing Afghanistan, Jeff, which is funny that. I know that.
Funny
it was
coincidence.
never really going to be England withdrawing from that. But this is probably the right time to tell you, Jeff, that we have a commercial partner for the Champions Trophy dailies, which go out from tomorrow.
Which are a mass production. We've got Daniel Rasool dropping in, the Pakistan expert. We've got Andrew Fidel Fernando, who's a Sri Lanka and New Zealand expert, as well as experts on other things. Daniel Norcross will be there, Cameron Punsonby will be there. They'll be collectively making a daily, each day, the Champions Trophy, so you'll be able to get that. If you're in Australia, it'll be in your feed before you wake up first thing in the morning. If you're in England, it'll be roughly knock-off time at the end of the working day, so you'll be able to catch up with 8 hours of one-day international cricket that you didn't have time to watch in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. And these podcasts might be more entertaining than the cricket itself. So make it part of your daily regime to listen to the final word daily. The first episode will be coming out on Thursday with Norcross there at the National Stadium at Karachi with Daniel Rasool. And that match is between two teams that play cricket.
2 of them. Yep.
2 of the teams that
2
play
of the
cricket.
8.
But yeah, we've got a commercial partner, which I'm delighted to say. We have got McInnes Whiskey, who are joining us for this trip. I met them through the Lord's Taverners. They're huge supporters of the Taverners, and now they're supporting us as well. We'll tell you about them every day. Jeff, I'll give you a briefing live on the show. How's that
Are
sound?
they any connection to William McInnes?
Spelt the same way, I'm pretty sure.
They
No.
are.
Is it the same spelling as William McInnes?
Same
Is he
spelling.
Mc-
Same spelling.
Okay, maybe it is. Friend and guest of the show. Big Bill McGuinness. What a legend. So what McInnes do is they specialise in sourcing branded single malt Scotch whisky casks for investment purposes. So this isn't like you're buying the bottles off the shelf.
Okay.
You are instead investing in a cask. And the reason you do that, it's like classic cars where whiskey is seen as what they call a wasting asset. So the gains on it are tax-free. It's not subject to capital gains tax in the UK. So
I'm already confused.
It just basically it's an efficient way of investing that hasn't got the same tax treatment as other investments do. So it's a nice way to invest in an interesting class of asset, right? You're having Scotch whisky as like it's a little bit like I suppose some people like to have racehorses, and although I suspect this will be far more dependable than the racehorses that I've had ownership stakes in.
Sounds like
before.
an alibi. Like I am buying a cask of Scotch whisky, but it's an investment. But so you buy it to not drink it?
Well, I mean, you can eventually, but you don't drink it in the short term, because this is the key thing here, right? Why Scotch whisky specifically? Well, that's you can get whiskey from all sorts of places, but Scotch whisky, as they said to me the other day, it's the Ferrari of whiskies. It's the whiskey that people that people identify it as the best of the business, and that's why it has a better chance of appreciation along the way. And McInnes only deal with the best, so that you get the best chance of those healthy gains that I mentioned before. It's not about a quick buck though. Whiskey takes time to mature. In the cask there, in the barrel, I suppose it is, and yeah, it's surging in popularity, this particular type of investment. So it's got great medium to long-term prospects, and yes, you can see that when you're in the shop, right? The exponential price increase of a whiskey that's like 20 years old compared to 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like, so you can see by leaving it.
So you buy it now, and then you can on-sell the 20-year-old whiskey. In 20 years.
That's right. So the idea is that, or whatever you want to get rid of your asset, you can do whatever you want with it. But that's the
you
idea
can
that
liquidate it.
Yeah, very good. So what they're doing for us here, which is pretty cool. So the type of whiskey called the Tullibardine.
Tullibardine. That looks right to me.
So that usually casks for that start at £3,625 all up. Like that's the whole cask. But they're giving us 20% off.
That's a lot.
It is a lot when you consider that price point. So if you want to go in with a couple of mates or a few mates or whatever it is, you get 20% off with the code ICC Whiskey Cricket 20. A little bit wordy, but I'll put it in the show notes at checkout for one of those casks. And we're doing that the whole way through the Champions Trophy. 20% off. Great investment. I would say a fun investment as well. Yeah. I'm going to get involved because I can't help myself with these things. I'm going to find some mates and take advantage of the 20% offer.
I might buy one, yeah.
Yeah.
It gives me an incentive to live for 20 more years.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you know, I want to be clear here. You don't need to leave it in the cask for 20 years to make an investment. I was just making a point about how Scotch appreciates over time.
Sure.
Check it out at mckinniswhiskey.com, the link in the show notes, and access your 20% discount. ICC Whiskey Cricket 20. I better put that in the show notes. There's no way I'm going to remember it.
No, especially because it's whiskey without an E, not with an E. We should have a break, shouldn't we?
We'll come back in a moment. We'll tell you some more about a whole bunch of other things around Champions Trophy, Sheffield Shield, and a lap around the world, especially over in England domestic cricket. It is the final word, season 17, episode 24. A beautiful scene here. Barely a cloud in the sky at the Sydney Cricket Ground. Shadows lengthening from our vantage point in the
We love it when shadows lengthen.
You can see that light tower when I got here was on my side of the ground. Now the shadow is all the way over towards the Bill O'Reilly
Nothing
stand.
more cricket than when shadows lengthen. If anything ever happens in the last session of a day's play, and I am writing it up, you would better believe that I will tell you that the shadows have lengthened.
I use it on commentary every single day. Every single day the shadows are lengthening when I'm...
Sometimes, you won't believe this, sometimes late in the day the sunlight takes on a more golden aspect, a different quality of light. Is that a wicket?
Phillips out for 31, gave a catch to cover.
31's pretty close to 28.
Scotty Boland, second wicket of the innings. New South Wales now slumped, not slumping at all. They're 4 for 127 in a game that's being tightly fought. Hey, so this episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. The McKinnis whiskey thing. I just wanted to introduce it to you, Jeff. That'll be a thing on our daily shows, not on this. This show is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. We've been talking a lot about super insurance through February. We'll continue to do exactly that. We want people to know that it's a thing because a lot of people don't know, and it might be something that becomes quite important for your family if injury or illness precludes you from working. It doesn't matter how you got injured or unwell. It's whether you can work or not because of the injury or illness, and it might be that you've suffered some significant unexpected health episode or something like that. So, but making a claim can be complex when dealing with insurance companies, so you don't want to see your claim unfairly rejected or something like that, which is quite common. So that's where Maurice Blackburn come in, and of course they work, as we've discussed on the show, primarily on a no-win, no-fee basis. So you can go to them. They're experts in super insurance. They gather all the necessary information. They help you complete all the complex forms. They lodge the claim on your behalf, and once that's done, any further requests that the insurer have of you is dealt with on behalf of you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. Their legal experts are there for you as ever. The number one plaintiff law firm in Australia, who have expertise in super insurance as well. And yes, all you need to do is go to Maurice Blackburn Super Insurance, Google that, and you're through to the semis without dropping a cent.
Mm-hmm. That's it. These are the things that it's good to have people who can help you out with things that are beyond the level of stuff that you want to think about. Getting someone else who's qualified to do it.
And I met them yesterday. I went into Maurice Blackburn Towers in Melbourne and met the team in there, which was really nice. So great to have them at our live shows this year, and hoping to continue to have a wonderful relationship with them through 2025. So thanks to Maurice Blackburn for their support of our show.
Yeah, they're making it happen so that we can sit here and watch the Sheffield Shield drift away through the afternoon. A little bit of one-day international cricket. England and India finished up their series. We told you last week about England getting pump-head across the first two games. Well, they got pump-head again in the third game. They got tailed up by 142 runs. India made 356. Shubman Gill, 100. Why not? Shreyas Iyer, Adam's favourite at the moment, 78. Kohli made a 50, so there's a little something for him to make another 100 against Pakistan in an ICC trophy and 50 over cricket, because that's what he likes doing. England, with the 214 that they made, top scorers, well, you would have got decent odds on these, say, at the start of the series. Tom Banton, who wasn't in the squad, who's come back after a long time out, and Gus Atkins,
yes,
who is supposed to bowl but does have a test 100. They made 38 apiece. So England have been shithouse, but it doesn't matter, says Ben Duckett, because they'll beat India in the Champions Trophy, and that's all that matters.
Really happy for Tom Banton. Interviewed him when he made his international debut back in 2019. had that slump, lost his spot in the pecking order entirely, was really struggling at domestic level. Still been on the T20 circuit a little bit, like the Grant Elliott Tour, like the secondary T20 tournaments.
Yeah, more like the T10 circuit.
Used to hoover up on, but he's had a nice run in that back in the England team. He's spoken publicly about how he wanted to quit altogether. So he's had some troubles, Tom Banton. So best of luck to him. Good to see him back. India's bowlers, I mean, they're just pairing. Arshdeep Singh, Harshit Rana, Akshar Patel, Hardik Pandya, 2 wickets each in that win. They don't have Bumrah for the Champions Trophy, so they're going to need to draw down on that cast of supporters to Bumrah, who was magnificent in the most recently completed ICC event. They're on the other side of the draw to the group that I mentioned before, so they play Bangladesh in Dubai on Friday as India's first game, then they've got Pakistan, also in Dubai, funny that, on Monday, and then New Zealand to round it off. So, I mean, this is on an absolute platter for India. I mean, the fact that the final will be played at Dubai, even in the scenario where India are the second team to qualify from that group. This has been set up. This tournament is being held for 2 reasons. The cash cow that is the India-Pakistan game, and that's okay. Like, it's a great thing that India will play Pakistan. We certainly support that when it happens, and we've been lucky to attend and commentate on those games before at these major tournaments. So that's part one, having that game. And part two is having a shiny trophy to take back to Underbud. And I suspect that India will do precisely that, because they can do things completely on their terms, playing on a ground which will feel like a home venue for them, and have all the other wider advantages of not having to travel and that type of thing. So I've never been as sure as of an ICC men's tournament as I am of India having every chance of doing the business here.
Well, they can place the trophy in the grandstand at Ahmedabad, and then at least they will have filled one of the seats. Look, it will be. Yes, India will know where all of their games are as long as they qualify for a semi. It'll be where they are already, and if they qualify for the final, so will that.
I know we're being a bit blasé about this, but it is a ridiculous thing, right?
It's ridiculous. I mean, look at any other sport in the world.
Tournament in a row, right? This happened at the World Cup last year too, didn't it?
Look at any sport, any other sport in the world. Look at any sort of football World Cup, any Olympics event, whatever it was, and you go, oh, well, if one team happens to qualify, then their qualification dictates where everybody else is playing, no matter what happens in any sort of league environment. It is objectively insane. It's different to having, say, a neutral venue where you hold a final, the FA Cup final at Wembley, or the AFL Grand Final at the MCG, or whatever it is, where you go, this ground has to hold this game for this reason, no matter who qualifies. But to have different grounds potentially hosting games, it is bizarre, and we know that India have a massively outsized influence as an economic power in cricket because there are so few other viable teams. That's the issue. You've got dozens of viable football teams across the world and about 5 viable cricket teams. But it is still bizarre that it's been normalised to an extent where, well, that's just fine, that's just assumed, that's just the way it is. Yeah, I think that's the key thing for me, that it's been normalised, that it's almost not a talking point. We almost brushed over that, right? I thought we probably should mention it. It's just priced into our thinking, and that's not healthy. I understand the complexity of this. I'm not trying to undermine the complexity of the political situation between India and Pakistan, but if you just focus on the sport bit, which is what we're meant to do, right? Then yes, it just doesn't happen elsewhere in other games, and it's become increasingly normalised, and so it'll be. And as I said before, there is a reason why this tournament's being played. It's a chance for a lot of money to be made in a short space of time, and which isn't inherently a bad thing. But let's be honest about where things are at. In the meantime, there's been a tri-series. New Zealand were playing a tri-series against Pakistan and South Africa. Brief tri-series, well, they played each other once and then had a final. But still, a tri-series is a tri-series. Mostly good news there. Bad news that Lockie Ferguson is out of the Champions Trophy. So all the fast bowling greats really seem to be dropping off around the world. Or, not that he's a fast bowling great, but he is at his best a great fast bowler on his day. But Carl Jamieson's coming back, Robocop style. They've fused his spine together. He's ready to, terminate with extreme prejudice for maybe 2 games until he breaks down again. But New Zealand, they were able to get into the final against Pakistan and knock them off by 5 wickets in a pretty gritty, grindy sort of proper old-fashioned ODI cricket. 242 is what Pakistan Pakistan made. New Zealand got their 5 wickets down with a couple of overs to spare.
And there was a statistical quirk here. I better get close to my screen to read his name properly. Matthew Britsky. Sounds like
Britsky.
Mark Bradkey. And Nicole Bradkey.
Yeah, he's been doing well for South Africa.
He got 150 on his international debut, on his one-day debut. That's the highest score for a men's one-day debutant. Before that, it was Gordon Greenidge, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's a real record given the enormous sample size in one day.
And they lost the game.
And they still lost the game. So 150 on debut in a losing effort. So as the great cricketer narrative would go on that, that's like the perfect day possible for the young fella. I assume he's a young fella. Truth be told, I haven't paid a lot of attention to him.
He'll be 38.
He probably is 38, mate.
Yeah.
But yes, the South African form coming in is shithouse. The New Zealand form coming in is brilliant. But New Zealand losing Lockie Ferguson. It's a great story that Cole Jamieson's back because he had his spine fused together in Christchurch. That same surgery that we've seen a number of fast bowlers have, including James Pattinson and more recently Cameron Green. So there was some risk that Jamieson, wouldn't be back. He's got a brilliant test record, pretty good one-day record as well. So he'll be there for New Zealand after. And I just love the Tri-Series. I was, as I mentioned, in the Exford last night, and they were showing highlights of the Tri-Series between Australia, England, and India that was played before the 2015 World Cup. That final at Perth where Maxi made 95, so that was nice to watch Maxi plundering a couple of bowlers called Broad and Anderson who were playing for England in that Tri-Series. But yeah, there's a nostalgia to 3 teams going at it because we don't get to see it too often these days, do we? When it was a staple of our childhood.
We covered the news with Izzy when you went here about Sophie Devine pulling out of the everything for the foreseeable, so not playing the WPL, not playing when New Zealand go to Sri Lanka, where she would have been captaining that team. So they've been sort of pulling their squad together last minute at RCB because that would have been very much built around Sophie Devine. Yeah,
and that news confirmed a couple of days ago that, it's not just the domestic cricket. So she pulled out of the Super Smash and the RCB side as well, but, not going to play for New Zealand against Sri Lanka next month. They've put their squad out and said that, her continued well-being will be the focus right now. And I admire Sophie Devine for that. She's played everywhere. Like, she's the defining symbol of what the T20 circuit is for women and the international circuit more generally. They're not paid loads of money in New Zealand. They've got equal match fees, right? But the ongoing salary isn't what it is in other countries. She's been every league going, including like Fairbreak a couple of times when I was out there doing that. She's been very open about her mental health issues in the past. I did an interview with her on Sky Cricket when broadcasting a match she was playing probably 2 or 3 years ago where she was very clear that she has played under an enormous duress at different points through her career. So good on her for having the ability to put her hand up despite being their most important player and their captain and saying, I can't do this at the moment.
Well, they're away anyway. RCB have got a couple of wins to start off. The 4 games played so far. Mandan has been making runs. Delhi Capitals and Gujarat Giants, the other teams to get a win in the WPL, which, in the interests of balance and equity, we're also paying no attention to in the same way we pay no attention to the IPL.
Yeah, it's like I can see the box scores. I can see Ash Gardner made 79 not out in the first game.
It's probably good.
Hope she had a great time.
Might have got dropped 8 times.
I hope she played well. Nat Siva Brunt, 80 not out in the second game. Don't know who she plays for. Hope she had a good time. I can tell you, she plays for the Mumbai Indians. But yes, it's not something we have a huge focus on. A second 50 for Gardner. There was some controversy though with the Zing Bales. There was a game that was decided by a couple of runs, the Delhi-Mumbai game, where there were 3 decisions reportedly, 3 times when the third umpire didn't go with the bail being when the light's going up. And there was some conjecture
for a run out.
Yeah, and they were using the bail being dislodged, like the conventional
being visibly dislodged.
And now they've decided to go with that instead of the Zing bail. So I think
that's just incorrect.
Between the lines, between the lines, they don't trust the Zing bails. They don't trust the process. That's what it sounds like. They're going back to let's deal with the bails being dislodged as the measure.
No. That's not how it works. So the whole point of the Zing bails is that there's a contact coil that as soon as it separates by a millimetre, that's when they light up, right? And they don't light up unless both contacts have been lifted.
No, I understand that. I think my point is that I don't think they're trusting the technology.
Well, so I'm just explaining this for an audience. So when that bail lights up, it means it's lifted. Now, in the old days, the bail had to be visible visibly out of the groove, which meant it had to be above the height of the stumps, because that's the only way that an umpire could see that it was clearly out of the groove, and not touching either stump, right? In order to see that, you had to have daylight between the top of the stumps and the bails. You don't need that anymore when you've got zinc bails, because it could be a millimetre out at either end, still visibly sort of looking like it's within the groove, but it's out of the groove. That's why the lights come on. I mean, that's a pretty fundamental thing about how the technology works. So I don't understand how they can come to that conclusion unless, as you say, they've suddenly decided that Zing is faulty after, I don't know, nearly 20 years of being used.
Yeah, probably at least 10. Probably T20 eras when it first came into prominence.
They've been normalised in the last 10, but they've been around since, I reckon, the start of the Big Bash at least.
Yeah, so that's a point of interest over in the WPL, which we will give a small amount of interest to next week on the pod.
What happens? Never considered this. So if you get bowled, we've all seen this happen where the bails jump up and then they settle back in the grooves. You're not out. What if it's a run out and that happens? The bail jumps up, you're out of your ground, and then it settles back in.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you?
That is something that I've not really considered before.
I think you'd say, well, the wicket's been broken, even though it becomes unbroken, and therefore, so it doesn't have to stay broken. But when you bowled, it does. That'd be an interesting difference. Anything else? What have we got to get through?
More to get through. So Ed Joyce has decided to stand down as Ireland's women's coach. Just wanted to say that Ed Joyce has done a power of work there since 2019. They didn't have any contracts in Irish women's cricket when Joyce took over that gig. I'm not saying all the results have been positive. There's been ups and downs, but yes, they've I think since they joined that ICC Championship in that most recently completed cycle, or the one we nearly finished at the moment, Ireland have been. I mean, they beat Sri Lanka last year, which was an emblem of where they're at. They beat England last year as well. So well played, Ed Joyce. I'm not sure what he's on to next, but a true servant of Irish cricket. And there's been to deal with other coaches who are leaving their posts. Mark Robinson is leaving Warwickshire, which is sad because we like Robbo. We've had a lot to do with him, especially when he was coach of the England women's team and led them to success at the 2017 World Cup at Lords. They won the county championship under Robbo in 2021, that year when they played in the conferences, and they got it done on the final day, but it's been modest return since then. They were saved by Liam Norwell on the final day of the following season and kept in Division 1 by the skin of their teeth. Middling results last year. They only won one game last year in the whole county season and still finished 7th due to a lot of draws, but they've done it in that very modern way. They've done a restructure which sees Robinson leave his post. That's very modern sport, isn't it? We don't just punt people, we restructure.
You promote them out of their current job into something else. Very senior management at a lot of joints. Kane Williamson going to Middlesex. This gave me a laugh actually during the week, because you were all like, Middlesex, they've got no money, they should sign Sam Constas on a basement deal, and then they got their money from selling off their stake and whatever, and they're like, let's immediately buy one of the best players in the world so that Williamson can come and make 5 first-class hundreds in 5 games. Yeah,
it's not quite as simple as that, but I do wonder how linked it is that he's got the London Spirit direct signing deal, which I'm pretty sure is 200,000 quid, right? So Williamson wanted to come to England. New Zealand have got flexibility in the schedule, terrific. Coming to Lords, great. Playing for Middlesex, wonderful. Playing 5 games in the championship towards the end of the season, playing in 10 of the 14 group games in the Blast, but playing for the Spirit. Is there cross-subsidisation going on there? Probably not, but I'm suggesting impropriety there by even mooting it, but I guess my point is that would Williamson be like, well, I'm already making 200,000 from the Spirit, I'm happy to take a bit less money for than what he might be able to get on
steak knives
at open market. I'm
not doing anything later in the year.
Purely speculative.
Might as well have a hit. New Zealand never played Test cricket anyway.
Yeah, so it's just, I guess how I see that is it's a structural advantage of the counties that play at 100 venues that they've you're already in situ, and let's say you play, for the Northern Superchargers. Well, playing some cricket for Yorkshire while you're there may not be the worst use of your time, given you've already made the trip and that type of thing. So that's where Williamson's headed. It doesn't discount my idea. I've never been more certain of something being a good idea than Sam Constas going to Middlesex for the start of the season. I mean,
you should tell him he's out there probably.
I should.
Oh no, he's not fielding, is he?
No, I did see him before. He's down there. He's down there in the dressing room. I should. I might say to him, Sam,
we'll drop in.
Sam, just call someone at Middlesex. Get someone to call them on your behalf and say, hey, I'll come for the first 2 months of the season. I'll be minimum wage. I'll, make runs for you in Div 2. You'll give me 4 games at Lords. Everyone's a winner. I see upside everywhere. Every party wins, and they'll sell a few shirts, so to speak, and not literally shirts, although they might. But people will come through the gates at Lords to watch this very interesting young man at age 19 playing at Lords for the first time. So someone call someone and make it happen. He's managed by Lee Watson. Someone call Lee at Lords and make this happen. Do this deal.
Yeah. I reckon they'd sell tens of Sam Constance Middlesex shirts.
Yeah, every little bit counts. It's like the Good Friday appeal, right? Give that they make. Every little bit counts. It's not like the Good Friday appeal at all. It's a professional sports team. That's a charity. Right. But you know what I'm trying to say. You know, if you read out my $20 pledge, I'll double it. If you read it out on TV, I'll double it. Well, if they get Sam Constance to Middlesex, I'll buy a shirt myself.
And the former boss of Middlesex, who was under police investigation for having a bunch of money he shouldn't have had, that's apparently been recovered, and there are no charges laid, and it's one of those situations where everyone says that someone else did all of the wrong things in a way that's impossible to determine who actually did, except to assume that somebody did at some point.
Fair to say I'm not going to get involved in the politics of this, because it just seems like this has been an ongoing saga. The referral to the Met Police last year of Richard Goatley, who was the chief executive, who ended up leaving the role because he was quite ill. But yeah, that whole thing is pretty intense and has been for a long time. Speaking of Middlesex, by the way, thank you for the kind feedback on the Mike Gatting interview. I actually listened back to it. I don't often listen back to episodes we do. I'm like, geez, that was good. Gat was awesome, and I think one of the more misunderstood characters in cricket in some respects. He's made an enormous contribution, still does, still there on the board at Middlesex and all the rest of it. So, give it a listen if you haven't as yet.
Oh, and on Sam Constance chat, if we can lean over the railing and yell out to him, he got a quick 100 in the One Day Cup round last week, 116 off 98 balls at Allan Border Field, where Ash Gardner hit it into the tree 3 times in an innings. They lost anyway, but they're still top 2. There's only one game left, and then there's a final on the 1st of March, which a few years ago the final was on like the 15th of April or something. I remember I think I'd had to travel to Sydney to commentate it it was during COVID times to do the ABC commentary for that. It was a bizarre sort of thing to be doing on April 10th, whatever it was, with WA were playing, young Cameron Green was playing, "Go Greenie," the WA players yelling out. I remember that. But yeah, 1st of March, so at least we'll get to it promptly this year.
Yeah, when you consider that when it was played as a hors d'oeuvre,
horse d'oeuvre. The correct pronunciation in French is a horse d'oeuvre.
Yes, Rachel always likes the way that I write down French words, and she has taken great enjoyment as how I spelled hors d'oeuvre very poorly a couple of years ago. But yeah, they used to play this final in like October. I remember commentating on the 2015 final at North Sydney at that time of year, whereas now it's all the way at the end. South Australia on top by 5 points. They should make the final against either New South Wales, Queensland or Victoria, who are all still...
But a late goal could still see them go down.
But South Australia, top of the Shield, top of the One Day Cup, so they're doing good things. And yes, that round will be played right after the Shield, so the teams that are playing in 4-day cricket will have a one-day at the end, just like it was in the 1990s. Bring back, as the Wombats once sang, bring back 1996. Bring back 1996.
Except for a lot of things about it. Don't bring those things back.
I love 96. What a year. Olympic years. I love Olympic years.
This is where Kathy kicked in Atlanta.
This is indeed where she did. So One Day Cups, that's that bit. But Jeff, we've got a Shield round that's playing out right now. What's Felipe on? I said we would... he's out.
31.
He's gone for 31. So you were nearly
Pretty
right
good
on that when we, 40 minutes ago, were saying we would throw to it. This is an annoyingly timed Shield recap because we're nearing stumps on day 2. There were 45 wickets yesterday. 45.
Too many.
Absolute.
I don't like it.
Carnage.
I blame social media.
Please have half. But yeah, most of them were in that wild game at Adelaide Oval, where South Australia, let's not count chickens here. They've still got to keep winning, even though they are top of the tree. Only a game separates 1st to 6th, right? They were bowled out for 93 on morning 1. 93. We're needing to make it work at home. 6 for 23 for Kieran Elliott for South Australia. Top scoring was Jason Sanger with 28. But then they rolled Tassie for 101 later that day. So there was 22 wickets on the first day there at Adelaide Oval. For the Sackers, Brendan Doggett's had a great year. 6 for 40, and top scoring for Tassie was Big Bo Slugman Webster, who made 28 down the list. South Australia, is at time of recording, have done really well in their second dig though. They're 5 for 235 with Jason Sanger top scoring with 75. Connor McKerney got 61. and Harry Nielsen's batting at the moment. So a lead of 230, more or less halfway through that game. Jeff, here at the SCG, New South Wales and Victoria, both teams still could make the final. Victoria still in second spot. Yesterday, this was the only story in town yesterday, Jeff, the Sam Constance dismissal and innings. He faced 7 balls. He tried to reverse ramp or ramp 3 of them and was bowled trying to hit it onto that same roof over there when going across his stumps to Scott Boland and had his leg stump uprooted.
He was at about silly point on one knee trying to sort of like lap sweep it AB de Villiers style by the looks of it. Yeah, once again I look at that and I think, not sure if that Boxing Day thing was good for him.
And he batted very differently today. I just think that I just don't want this guy to get burnt. Like I'm now worried. I wasn't worried until that just struck me. I get it, by the way. Trying to reverse ramp Boland, if you're going to try and reverse ramp anyone, he's actually not a bad candidate for it because you know where he's going to land the ball.
That's why Joe Root did it.
Quite right. It's Bumrah-esque in his consistency, right? And that's a compliment to Boland here, that certain bowlers, you know, McGrath would have been a good bowler to have tried to have done it to.
Douglas Murillo,
indeed.
Picked McGrath for a reason.
He did. So, New South Wales all out 238, Ollie Davies 89, Generation next on show there. Boland 4, Fergus O'Neill 3, Will Sutherland 2, Perry 1. That's nicely sequenced down the card there, 4-3-2-1. The Vicks only got 182. 30s for Harry Dixon in his second game. Stumps here at Sydney, by the way. I'll give you the stump score in a sec. We'll do this live. Sure. Modern times.
Around the grounds. Let's go. We've just heard from Peter Newlands at the sailing. Let's go to Adam Collins at the SCG.
The Galloping Gasometer over at Princess Park will tell you that Jackson Bird 3 for 24, 2 wickets on the first over of today. So over 1 here at the SCG has been quite a thing.
Can't bat though.
And New South Wales second time at stumps 4 for 134. As I look up at the scorecard, Constance 17 from 44, got caught at backward point, didn't play a shot for the first 20 minutes. So, yeah, still trying to find his way, having started the season so well. 100 last week, like the whole thing's bouncing around in his career at the moment. And yes, they reach New South Wales a lead of 190 with 6 wickets in hand, so they're in a strong position halfway through the game here at the SCG. And take us through the game?
I will take you through. Well, they've only had 2 innings and a bit, but Queensland got stomped around by WA in the first innings, which is happening in Brisbane. And yet, have you ever heard anyone say, if it seems, it spins? Because Rocker by baby, Corey Rockacholi took 7 for 52 in that first innings in 15.4 overs. Lovely stuff. Bowled him out for 147, then WA piled up 312. No hundreds there, but Sam Fanning made 95 at the top of the order. Sam Whiteman 67.
Yep.
Mick, maybe Bernard, I don't know, get them together. Wouldn't be my dream dinner party, but maybe for some other people. Honestly, number 5.
Beat the shit out of a shark.
Same song 11 times, I'll tell you what. Now, Jaden Goodwin made 40, Hilton Cartwright, the Hotel 48. So a big lead for WA. Queensland have just started their second innings. They're 20 without loss.
So the Shield, just to remind you of where it sits in terms of the table. South Australia leading Victoria, Queensland, Tassie, New South Wales and WA. But yeah, 12 points between them. Throw a blanket over them. That's going to be a really interesting end to the season. This is the third last round before the final. We're nearing the end of the show, aren't we, Jeff? I
think that's it. We got a party to go to.
We do have a party to go to. Before we do that, Jeff, tell us a little bit about NordVPN.
NordVPN? Oh, well, it's very simple. If you're in a bunch of different countries, like we are, for one thing, you might want to tell people or tell the internet that you are in one country. You might have a reason to want to appear as if you are somewhere that you are not. That's the primary purpose of a VPN. If you're worried about security and you want to make sure that you're not exposed to malicious actors, not the Hollywood kind, but people who want to get your data if you're on an unsecured network in an airport or a hotel or at a coffee shop or whatever it may be, you get a VPN. If you just want privacy and peace of mind and you want to make sure that nobody's scanning your traffic, trying to steal your bank details, all those kinds of things that are concerns and that people get scammed about, you want a VPN. It's a layer of security. It's very easy. It's a subscription model. You pay a few bucks a month to NordVPN. You sign up. You have it installed you install it yourself on your computer, and then you just click to connect it whenever you want. They're pretty much the best in the world. They're always one of the fastest in the world. They've got 111 different countries covered. They've got thousands and thousands of locations that you can click into remotely around the world to make sure that you've got the lowest latency and the highest speed, and you can get a fat discount when you sign up with us.
TFW, so nordvpn.com/TFW, discount, the chance to kill it after 30 days if you don't like it, but you will. I haven't needed it on this trip, Jeff. What I will say, A Real Pain is the best movie I've seen like in years. The Kieran Culkin film about going back to Warsaw and exploring his Jewish heritage with his co-star, whose name I can't remember. That is unreal. And the Anne Hathaway movie, where it's kind of like the Harry Styles character who she hooks up with, and Anne Hathaway is like the single mother character, and that's pretty good as well. That's called The Idea of You. They're the two films I watched on the plane yesterday.
Okay. I've been slowly working my way. I finally finished season 1 of Succession, and Kieran Culkin is a real pain. By God. It's hard to come up with a less likeable character.
Is that when the rocket goes down?
Watching that, I was getting very Musk vibes watching him watch the rocket blow up and then just pop his phone back in his pocket. Oh, well. It's just a couple of thumbs. Who's worried about a couple of thumbs? Anyway.
Perfect time to finish the show because, yes, the shadows have lengthened here at the SCG. Thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to everyone who says nice things to us on the internet. We're grateful for that. Thank you to everybody who has become a patron.com/ the final word.
That's it.
To Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, and we've got to go to see whether we've had a nice thing happen to us. Indeed, the branding around the SCG has just this moment changed to the Australian Sports Commission Media Awards. We'll let you know how we go.
All right, I better put my shirt on.
Bye.
See ya.